Everyone says don't get a Floyd Rose Special. They're horrible, but no one's explaining why. So in this episode, we're going to take a deep dive into the Floyd Rose Special, what it's made with, how and where it's made, so you have a crystal clear understanding. But stick around to the end because, curveball, the Floyd Rose Special might be the best trem for you. This is the Axe Guitar Show. Let's go. All right, welcome back to the Axe Guitar Show, your one-stop shop for tremolo tips and tricks. Really glad to have you back. We survived Hurricane Helene out here in North Carolina, you know. Make sure you check on friends and family if you have any in the area. Or even that goes for Florida, too, with Milton, making this a couple weeks after that hurricane. So today we're talking about the Floyd Rose Special, which has that funny name, right? Floyd Rose Special. Like, is it special? Is it better than any of the other products? What's the reason behind the name? And you'll find out in a couple minutes. But, so many people and guitarists say that the Floyd Rose Special is so bad, but no one's really digging deep as to why. They just say, don't ever get one. The Floyd Rose Special failed on me, the XYZ. It's like, great, but why? Like, tell us why, It would be interesting because some people are getting these on guitars on, budget guitars, and they're not really understanding what materials, how they're made, that leads them to failure, but also leads them to, a dramatic drop down in price compared to the other models. And I understand trims are like a little nebulous, it's hard to find exactly like what materials XYZ trim is made with or where it's made. Some people confuse that some trims are made in China when they're actually made in Korea, things like that. I get that. And on top of that, it's hard to tell the different variations of Floyd Rose apart. I mean, you have the original series, right? And then the 1000 and the Special, they look pretty close in terms of dimension and things like. There's other subtle differences, but if you're new to the tremolo game, it's kind of hard to discern those things. But knowing the Floyd Rose Special story, how they're manufactured, and the issues with them can really give you a greater and a better understanding as to why they exist in why the Floyd Rose Special exists in the overall Floyd Rose scheme. So grab your drink of choice, grab a snack. I'm a coffee guy. We're doing this early in the morning here because we're really settling into this episode of the podcast. And smash the like button too if you like all of this tremolo knowledge and floating tremolo stuff. And as always, I have put timestamps in the description of the video, so you can go to the section that you want, and you can revisit it or fast forward, navigate it to your heart's desire. Now, just before we get into the content, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that now so you don't miss out on any tremolo tips and tricks and knowledge from the channel. All right, so looking at the Floyd Rose Special, and these are the FRTS model numbers or SKU numbers. Did you know that? Yeah, Floyd Rose kind of categorizes all of their trim variations with certain SKU numbers, just like any other business that carries products, right? SKUs or I think PLU numbers, stuff like that. But this really helps in the nebulous world of tremolos, to see, what is the SKU number of that? Because sometimes, you don't know if you have an original based off the stamp because they're not using stamps anymore on the new ones, or you're just confused as to what tremolo this is, or you're buying a tremolo secondhand that still has the box, and you're like, what's a SKU number? I want to see if you're actually selling me like a 1000 series or an original Floyd Rose, right? So you have, in terms of the Special, you have the FRTS here, meaning that it's a Floyd Rose Special, denoting one, its quality and location of build. And you'll see this differently on all the other tremolos. Like the original one will be an FRT 100, 200, 300. The different numbers denote the actual finish. So let's take a look at this original. So the FRT 100 is this chrome finish one, basically the basic model, the one you think of with Floyd Rose originals. And then if you check it out here, let's say we go to the satin chrome, that's FRT 100S. So it's the chrome, which is 100 with S, meaning satin finish. And then we go to the FRT 200, that's a black finish. And if there's a black satin, which there is, it would be the FRT 200S. Now going over to the topic of the video, the Special tremolo system, you look at the SKU number here, it's FRTS, like we discussed, Floyd Rose Tremolo Special, and then that'll have a number too. So 1000 is the chrome, the satin chrome would be 1000S. If we're going over to gold, that would be FRTS 3000. And if that had satin, which it does, that would be the FRTS 3000S. So these SKU numbers are really good to know because it's one way to tell these trims apart. I mean, it's hard enough to kind of tell them apart unless you know the very fine details of some of these things. So if you have any question, if you have a Floyd Rose Special 1000 series, because 1000 series have their own SKUs too, that's one way to find out. Hey guys, just a quick break to tell you that this episode is brought to you by Humanoid Effects guitar pedals. Guys, I love these handmade pedals made right here in North Carolina, and I love them because Humanoid really pours their blood, sweat, and tears into their products, meaning you get unique guitar tone every time. And I want to give you exclusive discounts, so listen up. I use the Humanoid Apparition, which is a high-gain turbo distortion that, I'm serious when I tell you this, gives me the best thrash and searing lead tones that I need in my playing. Now, you can save 25%, yeah, you heard me right, 25% on all Humanoid pedals by using the link in the description and show notes, or use the code THEAXE at checkout. You won't find another deal like this on handcrafted, custom-made pedals, so go check out humanoidfx.com today. So we should start really where the Floyd Rose Special sits in the overall hierarchy of the variations of Floyd Rose trims. If we're really going to find out why these are less expensive and, why people say, wow, Floyd Rose Specials suck. There's really three main tiers, and that's tier number 1, the original Floyd Rose, tier number 2, the 1000 and 1500 series, and then tier number 3, which is the Floyd Rose Special. That's not a complete list or detailed, hierarchy of all of the Floyd Rose trims. But if we're talking quality and the trims that look like the original in terms of, the dimensions and what they look like, that would be the 3 tiers. Original, 1000, 1500 series, and then at the bottom, it will be the Special. I've done an in-depth video on all of these 3 tiers to make it easy for you. I'll put a card at the top and a link in the description where we really carve out the differences between those trims. All right, so the Floyd Rose Special is the bottom 3rd tier of what Floyd Rose makes. Now, some history, and this might help you wrap your head around why the Floyd Rose Special actually exists. Floyd Rose, OGs of the double locking floating trem system made by Floyd D. Rose back in the day, was sensationalized by 80s guitarists and then included in Kramer guitars, all that history, right? And then eventually they sold licenses because people wanted to make these and include them on their own guitars, like Fernandez, all these other, Schaller, even Schaller's a different story, but they sold all these licenses for the design. So it's like, here, give us money. You can use this fulcrum system we designed and make your own. Just put our little label on it. Licensed under Floyd Rose patents. I know some of you have seen that before. Now, these cheaper licensed Floyd Rose or floating trims actually did really well on the market because they were really inexpensive and it was a low barrier to entry because of, being relatively cheap to get a trim on your guitar. So then, a lot of companies started making these cheaper trims out of like weaker metals, or some of them made better trims, but started making some less expensive trims, and then people were like in the floating tremolo game like that, right? And then Floyd Rose realized there was a big, market there that they weren't getting a piece of, even though they invented this thing, right? So in an attempt to carve out some of that market, Floyd Rose decided to make the Floyd Rose Special, which really addressed the needs of guitarists that wanted a less expensive trim, low barrier to entry, and wanted to get started on the tremolo game. Okay, now we're getting into the nitty gritty. What makes the Floyd Rose Special the bottom tier? And you know what? That's really simple. It's really what the tremolo is made with, how it's made, and those two speak to its longevity and quality as well, really. And lastly, the location of manufacturing. So really, what it's made with, how it's made, and the location of manufacturing. Those are really the 3 components that delineate all 3 tiers, like the original 1000, 1500, and the Special. Those are the big things. There's obviously small things here and there that, are small details. Those are important too, but the big things are really what it's made with, how it's made, and the location of manufacturing. All right, so getting down to the materials of the Floyd Rose Special. It's made with a spot-hardened steel base plate, zinc alloy saddles, a zinc alloy tremolo block, and hardened steel screws. Now, it's important to compare this against the original Floyd Rose, which the original Floyd Rose comes with a completely hardened steel base plate, hardened steel saddles, a brass nickel-plated tremolo block, and then also hardened steel screws. So keep all of that in mind. So then moving on to what makes the materials of the Floyd Rose Special not as good as the original. Now let's talk about it, because I think this is what many people are alluding to when they go on the wild tirades on YouTube about how the Floyd Rose Special really sucks. I want my money back. Never get one. I recommend you never get one. Pump the brakes. Let's just talk about it for a little bit. So zinc alloy, what the saddles and the tremolo block are made of in the Floyd Rose Special, are really less durable of a metal, and it's used in like lower quality products in other products around the world. Zinc alloy can get really damaged more easily than hardened steel, meaning that the saddle blocks can get stripped away more easily and corrode or grooved, making the strings pop out of the saddle. If you really think about it, steel is still an alloy. It doesn't mean alloys are bad. Steel is an alloy. Any alloy is an elemental metal mixed with various things to increase its strength, maybe decrease it. But the thing is, zinc alloy is significantly weaker than steel, or at least a little bit. And where some problems run into is you have hardened steel screws that insert into a zinc alloy saddle block, and you have one metal which is stronger than another. That means that hardened steel screw is going to strip that zinc alloy saddle. It's just the way it is. And that's one complaint you hear pretty frequently from Floyd Rose Special owners, is that things strip. Like the hardware ends up stripping the saddles, or the fine-tuning screws, the hardware ends up stripping the fine-tuning screws and the threads in there. It's a very common complaint, and that is one of the reasons why different metals will strip one another or damage one another. Now, the way the Floyd Rose Special is actually made diminishes its quality a little bit as well. And this is some interesting kind of nitpicky detailed stuff, so pay attention. Check it out. So for starters, the base plate is bent rather than straight milled like an original. So an original base plate here is, designed, cut, milled to perfection, I'd argue. And, it's got clean angles, and it's really just machined to be really what it needs to be, the end product. It's machined into the shape we want it to be for a good, reliable tremolo. Now, getting back to the Floyd Rose Special, let's show you how this base plate is actually bent rather than milled. So coming to these pictures here, you can tell right here, this is that gold version, it's got a groove and almost like a right angle here underneath the fine-tuning screws. You can see that it actually has a groove that was made so the metal's easier to bend. And then coming over to this black finish one, you can see this little cut right here where it makes it easier to bend. Now, I'm not saying that bending by nature makes it that much worse, but these are the differences between the original Floyd Rose. Like this trim, this special, is made a little differently, where they cut corners and they bend things rather than milling the whole thing in the factory. And then you can see clear as day when we zoom in on this photo that there's a little crimp at the actual turn of this Floyd Rose Special, meaning that it's been bent. Metal doesn't crimp like that unless it's been bent. You don't see that on the original Floyd Rose, which is completely milled. I'll show a picture of that as well. So for starters, the base plate is bent and kind of formed rather than straight milled like an original Floyd Rose. That's one of the big differences between that and the Floyd Rose Special. That kind of diminishes its quality, arguably, a little bit. Now, secondly, you can also tell that these trims just overall are just not made with the precision of the original. Most notably, their knife edges, and I'll show you some good examples just readily available on the internet. So revisiting this gold Floyd Rose Special, go ahead and take a look at the knife edges here. You can tell, one, that the milling's more rough than the original, and then two, you can see that there's kind of arguably maybe some indentions, or it just doesn't look as uniform. Now, granted, this is a picture from Reverb, could have been a used special, right? So let's go to a new, the actual product advertisement shot from Floyd Rose. Let's go to their website. So looking at their website, look at these knife edges here. You see that? See how there's kind of like an indentation on the knife edge here, meaning that it's not milled to perfection. Now, I want to be completely transparent and truthful because I think Floyd Rose is one of the best companies in the world. this is a product advertisement, this is a product picture, and the background could have been removed, leading to kind of grainy, not such precise edges. You don't really see that around in other parts around this trim, but just giving them the benefit of the doubt. But it is known that the knife edges on a Floyd Rose Special are just not milled as accurately, and they can come with some imperfections, which, that's like the biggest thing on a floating trim. You want that fulcrum system to be really, really sharp and perfect so it returns to tuning and you don't have any issues when you use it. And then one last thing on how the Floyd Rose Special is overall made with less quality than, say, the original version. Look at the logo on this gold version here. It's kind of canted. It's not even straight. Sure, these things are printed en masse, just making tons of them, but that speaks to it as well. And you can see the F on the Floyd Rose logo. The F kind of comes down a little further than the rest of the text, and that's not the case on, original Floyd Roses and things like that. So this could maybe actually be an indication that maybe these are made in several different factories, because I've seen the Floyd Rose Special logo in kind of different fonts, different I wouldn't say locations, but different directions and, different straightness, I guess you could say. So that's another thing to consider. Now, the last reason why the Floyd Rose Special is in the third tier of all these Floyd Roses is because the Floyd Rose Special is made in Korea. Now, nothing against Korea. Korea makes great guitars. I have a few from Korean shops. There's really no reason why, Korean manufacturing is any worse than, say, another country. But the original, this speaks to why the Floyd Rose Special is kind of less expensive and not considered as great as the original. The original has been made in Germany for several years, for a very long time, historically from the Schaller factory. Although with the new upgrades to the original Floyd Rose, taking the stamp off the back of it, there's been changes to the original. If you have any questions, I did a deep dive into all the new changes of the original. I'll put a card up here and a link in the description so you can check it out. Getting back to the Special, the original was manufactured in Germany, while the Special is not. It's made in Korea, and that could mean, the Specials aren't getting that German expert manufacturing. This is all kind of speculation that the original get. Where it's made in terms of Floyd Rose tremolos is it holds a lot of importance for Floyd Rose consumers. Floyd Rose consumers really bank on the fact that, and they stake quality on, is this trim made in Germany by the Schaller factory or not? Because original Floyd Roses historically are phenomenal trims that are made in Germany, and if you're not getting that package deal, the value drops a little bit in the eyes of the consumer. That's just a truth. That's just a cold, hard fact. Now, the question is it warranted? I don't know. That's up to you. I've had Korean-made 1000 series and 1500 series trims that are phenomenal. So that's really up to the consumer. Now, hearing all of this, you might think that the Floyd Rose Special is just an absolute piece of garbage. You'll never get one. Don't do it. It's horrible. And I hear you. What they're made out of isn't awesome. It's not like hardened steel across the board and doesn't have a brass tremolo block. I hear you. But what if I were to tell you that the Special might be the perfect bridge for you? Doesn't make any sense, right? Well, let's take a look. Let's talk about it. Bear with me because I think it's a phenomenal opportunity for some of you, i.e. some of you, for a few reasons. Let's say you're a beginner guitar player, right? And you don't even have a trem. Nothing. You've just been hardtailing, or you got maybe a trim that's non-locking on a Stratocaster or something. Just using an example from my childhood, I started with a Strat, regular trim, and I was like, what is this? I want more. But anyways, let's say you want to enter the trem game and you don't even know where to start. Tuning a Floyd Rose as a beginner is already hard. How do you know which one to get? Right? Figuring out that there's an actual tension balance between the strings and the springs, and then figuring out from there which trim do I get, or what this guitar has this trim, this guitar has this trim. How do I know which one's better or which one will actually work for me? So the touchstone here is that the Special has such a low barrier to entry in regards to cost. When we pulled it up to look at it, you saw that new, it was $92. And you can get these post retail on Reverb that are new, haven't been touched, for even like 80, 85. I've seen them. I've seen some as low on like Amazon for like 75. Those are a little questionable, but let's just say this new, under $100, you can get a Floyd Rose tremolo system. And I think that's what makes it such a good opportunity for new guitarists or just guitarists that are trying to get into the tremolo game, because that means you can try out a floating trem, and if you don't like it, you're not out of hundreds of dollars of cash. You're just, you're out of maybe $100 of cash or less. It also means that if you love it, you can upgrade to an original Floyd Rose or of that caliber, because if you use the Floyd Rose Special and then you want to get an original Floyd Rose, it's a direct swap. They're literally the same dimensions, and they use a lot of the same, they're the same measurement. The recessed cavity should be just good to go to drop in an original Floyd Rose. So, and then furthermore, once you have a special that's working really well for you, say it's been QC'd, it was QC'd well, it was made really well. This does happen. I mean, I've had a couple specials that work pretty good. You can upgrade these bad boys because Floyd Rose is pretty modular. I mean, just like any, manufactured product, really, interchangeable parts, shout out to Eli Whitney. You can get parts for this and actually upgrade it. You can replace the trem arm with a pop-in one. That's pretty standard. You can buy those parts from Floyd Rose. You can order original hardened steel saddles, which, is a big piece of the tremolo. And you can even upgrade the hardware if you want. And getting back to the saddles, they're starting to make saddles here in the U.S. in their North Carolina factory. More to come on that. But you can get them in different radii, meaning you can have them fit different radius of fretboards. And then your Floyd Rose Special fits your guitar even better with better quality materials. So considering all that, I think the Floyd Rose Special is a good option, even though it's made with not as good materials and it's not made as well as the original. It's a good stepping stone and a low barrier to entry, getting you to a double locking Floyd Rose or floating style bridge. I think that's important, and I don't think we should just shun off the Floyd Rose Special. I think that it's an opportunity and, could be right for you. All right, guys, that's the end of the show. I really appreciate you spending time with me here. I do this for you. And if you have any questions about, Floyd Rose maintenance, you have an issue with a floating trem, go ahead and DM me on Instagram at NickAxeGuitar. Go ahead and subscribe if you're watching on video, or please rate and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, all that. All right, guys, talk to you on the next show. Later.